And some of that changes by call and the type of calls that we're given throughout the course of that day in terms of, whose skill set's going to be accentuated in practice. So it's been up and down, but I would say those 3 or 4 guys have done a really good job overall throughout the course of spring ball.
What do you call the outside? Is it the Buck and the Will?
Buck and the Sam.
Sam, okay. And who would be your Bucks right now then?
Well, that's a really good question. Right now we're playing them as right and left. And the reason for that is because we want them to be able to learn both sides. So we don't want to just have a designated Sam right now and a designated Buck right now. Eventually what we'll probably get to is more field-oriented and boundary-oriented, sometimes, but the ideal situation is that you can become the Sam or the Buck at any given play. And that's the philosophy that we're trying to teach those guys now, because we don't want to have happen is when guys memorize calls based on I'm this guy in this call, I got to do this. If I'm this guy in this call, I got to do that. What we want to do is we want to teach it conceptually so that they understand this is the element of this call, this is the inside element of that call, this is the outside element of that call, so that it becomes, because what will happen is if teams all of a sudden realize you're going straight field and boundary, they can formation you out with one guy and put him in a weird situation that he's not normally in. So we try to teach it now as right and left, so it's more of a philosophical approach for those guys.
So one doesn't have to be like a hybrid DN?
Not right now, no, not right now. We'll eventually get to that point, I think, but as of right now, that's not really how we're approaching it. So there'll be some odd-looking guys lining up sometimes at a 5 technique, and you're like, what is going on? But we're trying to give them the idea so they can learn it conceptually, so they're not just locked into one spot. Trying to generate depth that way.
What's kind of the high school profile you're looking at when you're looking to recruit outside linebacker?
So there's really 2 different philosophies you can approach. Outside backer is kind of a weird one to recruit, in my opinion. There's the guy who's always had his hand in the dirt, right? And he's been a weak side defensive end when you look up on whatever recruiting website you're looking up on, right? So he's the weak side DN. He's really good at pass rush. So you got to be able to now judge, does he have the ability to be a quick twitch guy out in space? Or you look at a guy who's been at a safety spot, who's 6'2", 6'3", 200 pounds. Maybe he's not a Big Ten safety. Maybe he's really a guy that if you roll him down now and he's now the strong safety, which is really what outside backers are, they're strong safeties. Now he's above average in terms of skill set and twitch and space movement. So you're either looking at a 5 technique long kid. Length is one of the biggest things we look for. If you want to talk about characteristics, we want to have a big playing radius. So a playing radius is either your natural length or your speed. We want the ability to change direction, and we want to be violent. Those are the 3 baselines that are what's the word I'm looking for? Non-negotiables. Right, those are the non-negotiables. You got to have speed, playing radius, speed, and violence.
So which of the 2 sides, is it the guy taking his hand out of the dirt, or is it the guy moving from the secondary that's harder to convince?
To convince?
Because a lot of those guys, at least when I talk to them, will tell I've never considered playing outside linebacker.
Yeah, it's a little different, right? So it's not necessarily that it's a hard thing to convince, it's getting to understand that their skill set translates to it, right? So it's not so much a convincing standpoint, because I've never had anybody say that I don't want to play outside linebacker. I've just not had that. But it's me getting them to understand what our philosophy is and how we approach it, so that we can translate their skill set to what we want to do. I mean, look at some of the guys we've had in the last few years where they were always a defensive end their entire career, and then all of a sudden we get there and they're an outside backer, or someone like Shaquem Griffin, who was a safety and a corner his entire life, and now he's an outside backer. So you can really work it both ways. It's just understanding those guys' skill set and how they translate to what we do.
Is versatility like a big selling point
Huge,
to a lot of them?
huge, yeah. You got to have the ability at outside backer to play man on number 2, play in space like an inside backer, be a 5 technique, be a 6 technique, be a 9 technique. That's a huge variety of skill set. So the more you show the ability to do different things, the more things you put on film, the more valuable you make yourself to the team and potentially to those people on the next level that want to look at you as well.
You guys put much nickel in the spring, or has it just been base?
It's been really way more base concepts. We've gotten into a little bit of nickel and things like that, nickel and dime personnel groupings this last week, trying to teach situational defense now. One of the things, as I talked about before, is we want to make sure we teach those guys situational defense, because the better they understand the situation, the better they can execute and play faster. So we've rolled a couple of different personnel questions with those guys so that they get an understanding of what we're looking for.
So the Buck, would he be the guy that comes off in the nickel situation?
No, not necessarily. It all depends upon the formations that we're hitting. So you have the ability to take a nose guard out or a D lineman out and bring a DB in, or you could take an outside backer out and put a DB in because you want to keep your 3 down linemen in. So it's really about down distance and personnel that you start to make your substitution patterns.